Another crucial aspect of our existence today has to do with challenges, huge challenges that we're facing in terms of climate change and things like the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think one of the a couple of things that these challenges are doing today is that they're not only redefining how we understand our human relations at the most basic habitual levels, right? They're changing our habits, but they're also asking us to redefine our human relations globally, right? Or to reconceive our human relations globally. How is the race, ethnic, and indigenous studies preparing Marquette students to reconceive our human relations, both at the sort of, habitual level, but also at the more global levels?
You want to start, Steph, or do you want me to go?
Sure. Sure. I mean, I think that one of the beautiful things about race, ethnic, and indigenous studies is, as I just said, right, it gives us the tools to rethink how history is formed, right? But one of those projects is also the question of who the human is, right? And not just who the human is, but rather what is the human in relation to, right? That the human is always a relational animal. And so the question of how we as human beings relate to our environments in ways that have been at this point rather exploitative, right? Extractive and disastrously catastrophic, right? Is also to tell a story of how the industrialized West came to be, right? And so I think it's implicit in some of the conversations we have that we also are able to have really critical conversations of not just who gets to count as a human being in the world, but also how the human takes shape in relationship to its environments. And of course, that's also a story of exploitation, right? And of how we have taken the human to be the almost the centripetal force of how things unfold, when in reality, right? That might not actually be the case, right? And there's lots of places globally that don't think in that way, and giving those people centrality offers us some really, really important perspectives, right, on ways in which we might be able to resist and shift the tables a bit, right, of where we are in terms of environmental destruction, which I know is also a very an area of expertise of Dr. Daly. So I'll give her the floor now to talk a little bit more about that.
Area of expertise sounds so formal.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah. No, so I'll say two things. One is philosophic, the other is more practical. So philosophically, in Quechua, there's a concept of Aini, which Jorge, you might know. I know Stephanie and I have talked about. It's about, reciprocity, right? The idea that every relationship is reciprocal between humans, and also between humans and other living beings, whether that be plants, whether that be animals, whether that be the sun, right? And so I think in the West, and the West, it's overused as a term, right? There's many different Wests, but to use shorthand, in the colonial world, let's say, the colonizers, right? There's this nature culture divide, and this division between nature and culture does not exist in that same form in the indigenous cultures that I have studied and with which I work. And I think that we are seeing in this era of global climate crisis that humans, as Stephanie was alluding to, we cannot put ourselves outside of an ecosystem as masters over said ecosystem, right? And we're culture and that's nature. No, we humans are part of an ecosystem. And so whatever our imprint is upon that, right, that is going to affect the longevity of our species. And so I think that we need to get out of this model of thinking of nature culture divide and kind of this binary there, and think more about reciprocity. And that is something I think the center, through thinking about indigenous knowledge systems, is very much wanting to promote on campus. The second thing more practically is I think there's a big discussion in ecological climate crisis about access to resources, right? And we often find that minorities, not shockingly, have less access to vital resources like water, vital resources like healthcare, right? So water, right? The water issue in Milwaukee, we just think who lives along the lake, like something very obvious like that. So I think, again, like our center wants to link, the positionalities of race, ethnic, and indigenous subjects to access to resources. And let's look at that. Let's look at how that has been uneven historically.